Thanks for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria this Monday. For our conversation segment, we shall review the President Buhari's recent visit to Bruno State and the implications on counter-insurgency operations. And of course, to set the tone for the discussion, here is Ekene Ndulue with the background report.
Since 2010, Boko Haram, one of the largest insurgent groups in Africa, has conducted terrorist attacks on religious and political groups, security personnel, as well as indiscriminately attacking civilians in schools, markets, and villages. At one point, the terrorist organization was said to be in control of about 20 local government areas in Bruno, a territory the size of Belgium. Its fear of terror was further spread across several other states in the northeast and northwest region of the country. Available statistics suggest that so far, Boko Haram insurgents have caused the death of more than 37,000 people and displaced over 2 million. Following his campaign promises to tackle insecurity in the northeast, the Buhari administration has since 2015 sustained consistent onslaught against the insurgents. Although many are still displaced and insurgents hold sway in some localities, a huge part of Bruno was recaptured by the federal government. For the third time in 2 years, President Buhari returned to Bruno State last week to appraise the security situation in the state and the northeast. The good news this time is that within the past 2 years, the government of Bruno State has constructed 560 projects, out of which the president inaugurated about 10, a pointer that reconstruction as well as socio-economic activities are picking up. Addressing the troops in Bruno, the president charged them not to yield any ground to the insurgents.
There is no room for complacency. As your commander-in-chief, I want to assure you that this government will continue to work towards the provision of timely funding and procurement of equipment for the armed forces and other security agencies. We hope the enemy will now feel the ferocity of our firepower and the weight of our resolve.
Some of the wounded soldiers say the president's visit to them is a morale booster.
I feel happy as the president himself remember us here. He came here, he greeted us, he even promised us that the rotation, those people that have been in this notice for good 4 years to 3 years, they will be rotated.
The president's visit is at least, he motivated us. That at least we know that we have a father.
This kind of thing happen to us, go demoralize us. Our mind still there, we will still fight the fight.
We pray for more good health for him, long life, more wisdom for him to able to tackle the issue of security in the country.
We promise new weapons and our welfare, everything, and we are very happy for that.
Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be giving their perspectives on the president's visit to Bruno State in a moment.
Thank you very much, Ekene Ndulue, for that background. With us in the studios now to begin the conversation, let's welcome the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Madam Garba Shehu. Delight to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for this opportunity.
And also here with us, a regular face on the security matters on the program, whenever we're, of course, focusing on such issues. Dr. Kabir Adamo is a security risk management expert. Delight to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
The pleasure is mine. Good morning.
And joining us from our Jos Network Center is Brigadier General John Temlong, First Commander of the Multinational Joint Task Force and former President, Alumni Association of National Defense College and Security Consultant. It's a pleasure having you once again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Kirian. Always a pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and from our Maiduguri studio, we are being joined by Professor Issa Mate. He's the Chief of Staff to Bruno State Governor. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, once again, would like to appreciate your being with us this morning. Let's begin with Malam Garba Shehu. Why did President Muhammadu Buhari decide to visit Bruno last week? Was it for the optics or for the real substance, or both?
Or even more. Well, officially he was there, to assess the security situation in Maiduguri. And to commission projects. The governor of Borno State, Governor Zulum, has achieved enormously in terms of delivery of projects, educational, health, roads, and things like that. And yes, you said optics, because politics is also important. COVID has tested the popularity of leaders all over the world, and President Buhari has equally been tested. And what we saw in Maiduguri there was that the popularity he has is unassailable. The die-hard following is legendary. So all of these things came together to give us one of the best outings that the president has had in recent times.
All right, assisting with you, was there any apprehension, in terms of security preparations for the visit? Some persons have thought that that visit should have been announced before the president took off from Abuja.
No, I think that people who speculate on those things don't know President Muhammadu Buhari, a retired military general. I will tell you that when he campaigned in 2015, the official advisory from the National Security Advisor's Office and the government at that time was that he must not visit. The campaign high command sat down and reported to him at around 11 in the evening, that is the day before the visit, and said, it's over, we are not going. The security is not, and he said good night to everyone. 6 o'clock in the morning, President Buhari came down, proceeded to the airport and said, whoever wants to go to Maiduguri with me, let's go. And he dared them, and he flew to Maiduguri, and they campaigned, even in those circumstances. Things are much better now. So yes, you could speculate about all of these things. Maiduguri is much better today than it was then. So I'm not sure President had any worries about visit this time to Maiduguri and any further visits that he might contemplate in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Malam Garba Shehu. We'll return to you. Let's go over to our Maiduguri Network Center, where the Chief of Staff to the State Governor was introduced a while ago, Professor Issa Marte Hussein. Professor Issa Marte Hussein, this has been an opportunity for some chest beating by your governor, and indeed for all of you who are in government in Maiduguri today. But help us frame what we are seeing and hearing emerging from Borno State. It looks like it's a combination still of war and tremendous progress. How are you achieving this?
Actually, I would like to thank Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari and our men and women in uniform. Borno State is far, far safer if you compare it today than 4 years, 6 years, or 8 years ago. At one point, as Garba Shehu mentioned, only 7 local governments in Borno State were free. But now, virtually all the 27, I would say 25, are free. We have even elected local government chairmen in their headquarters. And Maiduguri has never been safer than now. And His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, has really changed Borno State by providing good leadership. He is very competent, and he has the capacity of a leader. And then he provided good governance through transparency and accountability. And we did not receive more money than any other state, but through judicial and prudent management of resources, we were able to achieve this project, because even though it was reported that we executed 556 projects, there were actually more than that, because we condensed some of them into one project. So it's, yes, we would like to beat our chest, but these are practical things that His Excellency has accomplished. And we are really proud of His Excellency and also of the support we receive from the federal government. Thank you.
All right. Now that we're talking about projects, which your governor has been able to execute, even under the circumstances that the Borno State found itself as a state. Let's be specific. We saw one of the national dailies today a number of housing projects that have been completed, while some others are under construction. Well, are those houses currently habitable? And if yes, when do we expect the IDPs, to begin to take over the houses? Perhaps because we know that the houses are being constructed because we want to, resettle the IDPs.
Thank you. Yes, we have already moved some of the IDPs into these houses, and His Excellency just 2 weeks ago, he has given keys to some IDPs in Auno, and also in other places like Ajiri. And now we are moving from short-term plan to a medium and longer-term strategies. So we are moving these IDPs to their ancestral homes, and we need these houses. So already His Excellency has promised to actually close most of these IDP camps in Maiduguri and move the IDPs to their communities, because one, it's not sustainable to really continue to feed them on daily basis. And our people here in Borno State, they are proud people. They want to go back to their communities and farm, because the whole business in Maiduguri is agriculture-based. So they are farmers, and they want to go back to their ancestral homes, farm, and feed their families, and also have money to sustain their families, than to stay caged in these camps and then being given, handouts. So the houses will come really handy when they move to back to their communities. For instance, we have moved about 700 households to New Marte, that's my local government, and we have already constructed houses there. We renovated the houses that were that belonged to Chad Basin in those days. So they are there. And if you go to Damasak or Mongono, you will find that, the IDPs, the ones that have moved there, relocated there, they are occupying the houses. You go to Banki, we have built about 500 houses, and the IDPs are already Ajiri, they are there, and other local governments. So we will continue to really relocate these IDPs back in their local governments and then move them into these newly constructed houses or renovated houses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Issa Mate. We'll return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's come back to our Abuja studios. Dr. Kabir Adamu, help our viewers understand what is happening in Borno, for instance. It's unique. Last year, there was a story, gory story, I must say, of farmers who were hacked to death during harvest time by Boko Haram elements. There are reports of hit-and-run attacks by either ISWAP or Boko Haram. And the governor himself has always been on the road, on the move. And in at least 2 instances, it's also been attacked. His convoy has been attacked with fatalities. And yet, simultaneous with all of those scary stories about terrorist attacks and fatalities, you are seeing and hearing about development projects ongoing, some of which the President commissioned last Thursday. How do we understand what's happening in Bruno?
Thank you once again, Kingsley. In simple terms, what we are seeing in Bruno is an exemplification of resilience by a people led by their governor. Of course, there is an insurgency going on, an insurgency that in 2013, 2014, the group spearheading that insurgency won the international unfortunate acclaim of being the deadliest terrorist group in the world. Like the opening report by your correspondent mentioned, a figure of between 37 to 40,000 people may have lost their lives as a result of that insurgency. At the same time, you have internally displaced persons of a figure between 2.3 or more, because several of them are in informal camps that are not documented. So it's a bit difficult to get that figure, but what's out there is about 2.3 or thereabout. Now, you also have 2, or some would say 3 groups that are raging that insurgency. You've got the Jamaat al-Ahl-Sunnah lil-Dawat wal-Jihad that was led by Abubakar Shekau, and then you've got the Islamic State in West Africa province. And then in the border area between Nigeria and Niger, you've got a 3rd group that may be affiliated to the Jamaat al-Ahl-Sunnah lil-Dawat wal-Jihad, led by one Bakura. Now, all of these groups are raging their own version, as it were, of insurgency with the objective of establishing a Sharia caliphate. On the other hand, you've got the Nigerian government implementing the Operation Hadinkai, with its headquarters in Maiduguri. Now, what we have is an armed conflict between the military and other security forces, and then these other 3 or 2 groups, like I've mentioned. Unfortunately, it's the people that are in between this armed conflict. And almost on a daily basis, we see this armed conflict affecting the people. The good news, just like the Chief of Staff mentioned, is that at least in 25 local governments, we have established authority, at least in the city capitals, in the local government headquarters. Now, the challenge is in the periphery, the outlying areas of the local government areas, and in the routes linking the various cities. The level of security that has been established by the government and the security forces is being challenged by this, well, firstly, the terrorist groups that I've mentioned, and then recently, too, we've seen criminal groups also coming into the foray. So when residents are traveling between these locations, unfortunately, they are exposed to both the armed conflict and then the activities of sometimes these criminal groups. Constantly, I run a consultancy. What we've been monitoring is illegal checkpoints that are being mounted by these non-state actors, some of them terrorists, some of them criminal. And then in the process, they stop travelers, they check, and then they abduct the ones they want to check, almost all over the state. 2 local governments have stood out in terms of the level of insecurity, Abadam and Mobar, unfortunately, and I believe this is what the Chief of Staff will corroborate. But in spite of all of this, what we are seeing is an exemplification of resilience by a people that are determined to forge ahead despite all of these challenges. Are they being affected? Are they victims of it? Yes, unfortunately. But at the same time, we see them, coming back, trying to forge their lives in spite of all of these challenges.
All right, thank you, Kabir. Let's go to Jos, where we have Brigadier General John Temlong. Sir, let's get your own understanding of the visit by President Buhari to Borno State, where he commissioned a number of projects. He also addressed the military personnel and visited those soldiers who were wounded in the theater of war. What does that portend for a military outfit that has been fighting insurgency for a while now? Not just well, the regular army in terms of the insurgency, but a symmetrical arrangement, you know, that is not familiar to some soldiers who are actually in the battlefield. Is it just a morale booster, or does it add any kind of encouragement, you know, to soldiers? Because of course, he has told them not to leave any breathing space for the criminals.
Thank you very much, Kirian. From the reaction of the soldiers, especially the wounded in action, you would have seen that the visit was quite a morale booster. The duties of a commander-in-chief is not just to sign off and put our men in harm's way without taking responsibilities for where they are. And that means the commander-in-chief has to visit them in the field to feel how they are feeling and to encourage them, as he has done, to bear the weight of what they are going through and listen to them firsthand, and like what the soldiers did tell you from the interview, and then assess what they are doing and then what their deficiencies are in terms of weapons and equipment, which he has actually identified. And then the effects of combat on the men, that's battle fatigue or post-traumatic stress disorder, which he has identified that is disturbing the troops, which he has ordered for rotation of those who have overstayed in the combat area. Be that as it may, I think the important thing to note here is that the strategic objective that the commander-in-chief would have given the armed forces would have been to restore the territorial integrity of the country and restore civil administration so that governance can take place in areas that had hitherto been under the control of the terrorists. So in effect, what he has done, or what is happening in Borno State, is a clear exaltation of that the military or the security forces have been able to restore civil administration. If not so, all these development programs would have not been going on. And so I think it's quite a commendable feat that has happened. It further shows that tackling the insurgency problem is not just a military problem alone, but it is both a military and a civil affairs. You can see what the state government is coming in to rehabilitate those who have been displaced, building, reconstructing, going back to take administration to where it's supposed to be, at least the 25 local governments. So it's supposed to be an all-of-government and all-of-people approach to this situation. And I think we have succeeded to a large extent. The visit of the commander-in-chief itself would have paid call to this. Those who are thinking that Maiduguri was a no-go area has seen that the commander-in-chief has gone in there, walked the streets of Maiduguri, performed official functions, spoke to the troops, especially those wounded in action, and then encouraged the soldiers and told them that he was going to provide for them all the necessary requirements, all they need to carry on the fight. I think that is the greatest morale booster every commander-in-chief can give his men. Because what a soldier needs to see is to see his commander comes in, or his commander-in-chief visits him in the mission area. It has been a practice in all, right from the First World War, Second World War. In fact, even before then, kings who were the commander-in-chiefs used to go for war until the concept of state came into place with the military coming up to take off the elements of going to fight. That kings started staying back at home, but then they used to visit their troops in the front. And so this visit is quite instructive And I think in history, it has been shown that during the Second World War, you would have seen that Sir Winston Churchill immediately, Montgomery was able to turn the tide against the Germans in El Alamein, where he got his name, Montgomery of Alamein. Sir Winston Churchill visited him there immediately as a morale booster. So also Harry Truman visiting American troops. General Gowan visited our men in the war front. Here you have the commander-in-chief coming in to visit our men. The American presidents had been going to Iraq, Afghanistan, and the rest. So commander-in-chief is not just an appellation or name. It goes with responsibility. It goes with the command and control of the armed forces. And you have to be physically on the ground to feel what the soldiers are feeling and give directives and listen to them and do what the president has done. And I think that is what leadership is all about, leading from the front. And so you now see that the morale of these chaps have been really boosted, and you will see the end result. And by this weekend, you've heard that the Air Force had neutralized one of the strongest people. The soldiers had overrun or even turned back some infiltration and attacked. You could see a greater impetus by the men coming in to deal with these people decisively. And I believe that very soon, as we move on, you will see the impact of this visit, both on the battlefield and then on the political side by the people of Borno itself. I think this is quite a commendable thing, and the CNC needs to be commended for that.
Thank you very much, General Temlong, for your comments. Let's return to Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Garba Shehu, presumably there are pre-visit assessments to see whether it's worthy of the president's attention, or even say as a state governor, to honor an invitation from either a local government chairman in the case of the governor, or the state government in the case of a president. What did you see? I mean, you're also a journalist. Did the projects strike you as a wow project or wow ideas in the context of what we are seeing in Bruno, trying to rebuild, trying to reconstruct, and then trying to forge ahead?
Well, okay, thank you for recognizing my journalism background. And before I come to your question, and I will like, please, we have Dr. Kabiru here, and I, at some point, probably will help us to also explain, you know, some of the language we hear from civil society, and some of which has come from him now, which is to the effect that this is a conflict between two groups and the people in between. And maybe because we're in government, we sometimes get confused, because I guess when the sovereignty of a nation is challenged by terrorists, as we have, and actually the larger number of victims is the civilian population. It's very hard to understand people equating, civil society equating government and the terrorists as being, you know, contenders in a conflict, and some of them, and I respect Dr. Kabiru enormously, you know, civil society groups resident in Maiduguri. Story is, some of them, they drive out to the forest each morning, and chances are that they actually meet, they deliver medicines and possibly food in the belief there's a quality or parity in the contest. A group of terrorists challenging the sovereignty of a state, and it's amazing how Nigerians come to accept this. I don't think it's applicable elsewhere, not with Americans, certainly not with sovereign nations as the United Kingdom and so on. So,
Malam Garba, I would like you to, I mean, just let my question be in abeyance. Clarify this, because we have had on Good Morning Nigeria in the past, and I'm sure Professor Issa Marte would confirm this, members of the Bruno Elders Forum complained at some point about the proliferation of NGOs in Bruno, and they raised concerns about some of the activities of some of these NGOs. So what is the point you are making about conflict between two persons and a civilian population in between? You seem to be reaffirming what Kabiru Adamu said. I'm not quite clear about what you were saying.
No, I'm saying that there is a dissonance because the group of terrorists cannot be equaled, cannot be compared, placed on even keel with the sovereign state like Nigeria, which they are challenging. And it's so the state itself is the people. And they are fighting Nigerians because they're killing huge numbers of our civilian population. So it's not exactly correct that the population is caught in between a conflict between two groups. No. It's a challenge to the sovereignty of the state, territorial integrity of the Nigerian state, and the sovereign state must fight back. It happens with all nations.
Kabir?
At the risk of sounding a bit pedestrian, the reality is that the conflict is ongoing. No matter how we want to term it, there's an ongoing conflict between two groups. Now, that's not saying that we're elevating the terrorist groups. They've been defined as terrorist groups by the Nigerian law. That's not contestable. But unfortunately, they have successfully challenged the authority of the state over the last 11 years. I don't want, like I said, I don't want to sound pedestrian. The Nigerian government signed an MOU with these non-governmental organizations that are operating in Borno State through the Ministry of Budget and Planning, if I'm right. So the responsibility for oversight is in that ministry, and by extension, the Borno State government. And I'm aware that the Borno State government has done a lot in terms of establishing protocols and procedures for oversight for these non-governmental organizations. Now, if we extend that discussion to recognize the fact that non-governmental organizations have humanitarian principles that have 4 components, and to an extent, extend their services for anyone who requires that service. I am a professional. I study issues and developments. I don't have control over how government implements its policy. But my recommendation to government is to use the instrumentalities of the state. I have mentioned the Ministry of Budget and Planning and then the Borno State government to ensure that the MOU that has been signed between the government and these organizations are implemented fully. I don't have a control over that. I study issues and I give it as it is. What is the situation on ground? These non-state actors are challenging the authority of the state. They are using weapons that are military-grade weapons to fight the military. And what is in between? It is the residents of Borno State. And that's exactly the point I was trying to make earlier on.
All right. In this connection, let's return to Professor Issa Mate Hussein, Chief of Staff to Borno State Governor. You've just listened to Malam Garba Shehu and Adamu here, talking about the NGOs and, of course, the protocol or the MOU that's existed between the government and the NGOs who are operating in Bruno State. As a matter of fact, some months ago, there was this complaint about the activities of some of these NGOs. So how has the state government been managing these NGOs? Have they been working together? Is there any form of collaboration between the government and the NGOs? If yes, how has it assisted the government in, of course, being able to complete some of the projects that were commissioned by the president?
Very much. Before that, I actually aligned myself with the position of Garba Shehu, because actually these terrorists, they are terrorists. When they started, they were killing innocent people and challenging the government. It's later on that ISWAP and then the Boko Haram, later on, probably this year or last year, that we even identified that there were 2 groups. But initially it was just one group killing innocent people and challenging the authority of the federal government. Most of the NGOs are really good NGOs. They have good intention. And very few of them actually believe that they could help IDPs and people of Borno State as well as terrorists. But of recent, we have registered all the NGOs, and we asked them to key into our 20-year development plan and 10-year transformation initiatives. If anyone doesn't want to key into that, let him pack and leave Borno State. And if you support any terrorist by providing medication and all this thing, you are sponsoring terrorism. you are with the terrorists, not with the government of Borno State or government of the Federation. So we made it very clear to them. And we are also monitoring these NGOs because really we are, as I mentioned earlier on, we are moving from the short-term strategic plan to a medium and long-term plan, developmental plans. So anyone who wants to help IDPs or people of Borno State or people of Nigeria should go to their communities and be involved in resettlement of these IDPs. So definitely most of the NGOs, most of them, probably 95%, 98%, they have good intention in helping the people of Borno State. So they are welcome in Borno State, but the few that were trying to also serve the terrorists, we made it very clear to them that there is no way you can go and assist or supply medication or feeding to terrorists and still believe that you are helping, the people of Borno State. It's not a conflict between two tribes or two this thing. These are just terrorists, bad people trying to kill the good people of Nigeria.
Okay.
Thank you.
Professor Martin, let's just stay with you. Well, in Nigeria, we keep hearing about projects, and usually these are houses or roads or boreholes. What about the people themselves? What is the impact of these projects and programs on the people? And here, my focus would be on education and health, as well as, of course, agriculture, which is livelihood in that location. What has been done following the disruption in the educational system, the destruction of public schools, as well as, of course, health facilities? What has been achieved in this regard? Those ones, of course, are less tangible than roads and houses.
Thank you. Actually, we have done more in terms of renovating and building schools than any other project except probably housing, because we have renovated most of the schools in all the local government headquarters. And also we have built between this administration and the previous administration, because the administration of Professor Babagana Umar Zulum is a continuum of that of Senator Kashim Shettima. We have built 62 mega schools. Each of these schools will accommodate comfortably 1,500 pupils. And they are world class. I've lived in United States and UK. You can compare in terms of quality of these structures and what's in these buildings to any other school, even in the United States. So we have done a lot. In terms of health care, in the last 2 years, His Excellency's government built 56 projects in healthcare, primary healthcare facilities, hospitals, and equipped them, as well as we have provided medications. Just recently, we recruited 40 doctors on top of the 15 we recruited last year. And then recruited about 350 nurses, 20 pharmacists, and so many other health professionals. So health sector also is enjoying from the efforts of His Excellency. And in terms of people, if you come to palliatives, the federal government has approved even the delivery goods, food, rice, maize seized by customs through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Sustainable Development to deliver to Borno State. And also, the government also has spent a lot of money procuring food. And if you combine the devastating effects of this terrorism and the COVID-19, if not because of this type of interventions, really the poverty rate or even death in Borno State would have been really alarming. So in terms of job creation, because some of the schools we have built, about 4 of them, there are vocational training centers or institutes, to develop the middle manpower, masons, computer repairs, carpentry, all sorts of, middle cadre professionals. So we are training them, and then this will empower really people, in terms of their livelihood. And His Excellency also, whenever he visits any of these local governments, he makes sure that the money belonging to this local government, it's distributed, it's given sometimes directly to the people with food. And of course, the local government administration there also does its own part. So it's a people-centered, people-oriented government. And I don't think, I'm not saying that because I'm in Maiduguri, there is any government in Nigeria that is really doing a lot to its people than the government of Professor Babagana Umar Azul. Thank you.
All right, sir. We indeed appreciate that. As the chief of staff to the governor, you have a better understanding of his attitude towards lifting people up in Bruno State, especially because of what the state has gone through in over a decade now. We thank you. We'll return to you as we make progress in this conversation. Now let's go back to Jos. General Temlong, actually I want to take you on professional questions because you are a retired soldier, even though you're no longer in the service now. The president told the troops not to leave any breathing space to terrorists or criminals. What does that mean in the military parlance? And beyond the president's directive, he also told them that the government is behind them in terms of provision of equipment, required to complete this fight. In fact, to finally, denigrate, destroy these two groups in question. That's the ISWAP and the Boko Haram. I don't know if you have the statistics. Do we really have the kind of equipment required to complete this fight? Because, of course, we had in the last couple of weeks that the government has released some billions of naira for the procurement of equipment. Even that, we've also had a number of times in the passing year that the government has been procuring equipment for this particular fight. So what else should the military do? Should they change their strategy, with respect to ensuring that these two groups in question are finally dealt with?
Space is that to seize the initiative and continue to hold the initiative. In fighting this sort of asymmetric or not even conventional warfare, you must seize the initiative and continue to hit the enemy at the more vulnerable point to the extent that once he doesn't have any breathing space, he continues to react. He wouldn't have the initiative, and in the end he capitulates. The only time probably you do that, you might relent, is probably to draw him into a killing ground, into an area that is unfavorable. When he comes in, then you defeat him in detail. So what the president has told them is purely what the military is supposed to be doing: seize the initiative and hit on relentlessly. He further told them that he will make the equipment, the government will make equipment available. I think this is a very good move from what Nigerians used to see the military as one side and the government as one side, not seeing that the military is an instrument of state policy. It is a creation of the Constitution. It is the Nigerian military. It has its functions spelled out for it in the Constitution and the Armed Forces Act, and so it is supposed to be funded and equipped by the Nigerian state. And so what the president has done is to actually tell the military that, look, we are going to do what the law or the Constitution says we should do for you. You are not your own creation. You are a Nigerian military. And so the equipment that they will require now is that it's a joint operation, as you know, Kirian. You need both the air and the ground components. The air, we're expecting the aircraft that we've ordered from America. You can now see the sort of politics of arms procurement that goes on. We paid for these aircrafts. They're supposed to have been delivered about 2 years ago, but up till now, they have not been delivered. So you see the politics that goes on. Unfortunately, we have some unscrupulous Nigerians who have even been calling on Americans not to deliver this aircraft. You need attack helicopters. You need troop-carrying helicopters that can move mobile and hard-hitting men to move around the battlefield. You need ISRs, you know, those that can surveillance, intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance systems to give you those. You need drones that that can be armed and can provide reconnaissance and intelligence to you. For the ground forces, you need mine-protected and ambush-resistant vehicles. You need armored personnel carriers. You need more weapons, kinetic weapons that will fire and hit. You need to be able to move these men as quickly as possible to react, because these terrorists move from point A to B. Now that they're not being able to hold ground like they do, so they move from point A to B without this. So you should be able to have a quick, rapid reaction force that is hard-hitting, is strong enough to hit, is strong enough to destroy them, and then, if possible, hold the ground for some time before moving up. So you need a quick reaction force. So these are sort of the equipment that I'm sure the military high command has been able to come up with the need assessment given the government. You will know that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Rabo, was a theater commander. The Chief of Army Staff just left the theater, so it's in full understanding of what is there. The Chief of Air Staff was in the theater too. So these three actually are very conversant with what is going on in the ground. They know the situation, they know the equipment deficit, they know the sort of equipment that they require. And now that the Commander-in-Chief has actually come up to say, look, we are going to give you, I'm sure we will within a very short duration of time, hit these things. And you see, it goes just beyond equipment. And I'm glad Kingsley and the Chief of Staff and Garba Shehu just raised those things too. The NGOs who had been a gold mine in Maiduguri, they have been actually involved in moving and collaborating and giving intelligence to the terrorists. And definitely, if you go to Maiduguri and find out how much NGOs that are available, there are even more than the NGOs that were available when we fought in Liberia and Sierra Leone put together. And so you have even people going to rent accommodation for 5-10 years as NGOs. So I think there is need to be more monitoring of these NGOs. You would have seen that the terrorists are very intelligent. Recently, the NFIU busted their terrorist financing units. Who would have known that Beruti changed all over in this country, about 18 or 20, who are being sponsored or formed by this thing, used by the terrorists for financing or moving of funds. So I think we need to do more with those NGOs. It's not just Ministry of Budget. I think the intelligence arm of this government must definitely look at some of these NGOs. The NFIU too must look at their fundings and how they're moving. They are a very veritable source of supply of weapons, supply of medical equipment and supplies, and intelligence to the terrorists. And we must cut them in their this thing. Those who are not ready to work with us, move them out of this country. Not just move them out.
I'm sorry, but General Tamlong, I still want to stay with you because we're getting pressed for time now. That's a point I would like you to address from the military perspective, and perhaps Kabir Adamu may also wish to weigh in on this. A lingering and often worrisome issue with troop deployment in the theater of operation in the Northeast has to do with rotation of troops. And President Muhammadu Buhari again drew attention to that and indicated that those who had been on the front lines for a long period of time, should of course be rotated. I'm just wondering, why would it require the commander-in-chief to again restate the necessity for the rotation of troops? Because over the years, part of the complaints arising from the long stay on the front lines have been fatigue and post-traumatic stress disorder. These are supposed to be, I imagine, either operational or tactical issues. Why do you then have to involve the commander-in-chief? Is there something that needs to be tweaked so that we don't have all these complaints of some people staying on the front lines for 1 year, 2 years, and so on and so forth, and then beginning to have diminishing returns?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I touched on that in my opening remarks. I think it's quite unfortunate that it is the commander-in-chief that will have to find out from the troops that some of them have stayed upwards of 4 years in the combat area. This is not supposed to be the case. The reality on ground is that you need more boots on ground. And so the numbers are quite low. So the military needs to ramp up its recruitment because you are fighting on more than one front. Now you have the Northwest, you have the Southeast, in fact, the whole country troops are deployed. So you need more boots on ground. But you see, the important thing is that administration is key to some of these things. In normal combat, either you rotate them or you refit or retrofit units. During the Second World War, when it was too far away in India, in Burma, they used to bring back our troops to India to rest and then launch them back into battle. And that's where the West African social activity started, because when they moved back to India to rest and then to retrain and return, then they start their social activities. Wasa came up. But in this case, you need to ramp up your administration and be able to rotate troops and don't allow them to stay so long. Now that the commander-in-chief has given them that go-ahead, it shouldn't have been the case. I know that the present crops of service chiefs, we brought it to their attention, and they were making arrangements to do that, to make sure that these troops who have stayed so long in battle area will be rotated and fresh impetus, fresh men and fresh blood and fresh legs pushed into the battlefield. So I believe that within the next 1 or 2 months, these sort of things will be carried out. But it was quite unfortunate. It's something that shouldn't have been the commander-in-chief who should have given these instructions. It's something that it should have been done, is routine in the military, is taught in the military, is part of administration in the field, and it shouldn't have been allowed to linger on for those. Even if you don't have the numbers, there are ways you can manage those numbers and get men out so that you don't have battle fatigue or PTSD, as you call it, affecting the troops. It's quite unfortunate. It affects their ability to fight. It affects their morale. Their families are affected. Their relations are affected. In fact, we're lucky that we still have young men who still want to join the military. These sort of things will be quite diminishing and devastating on those who want to go into the military, because you go in, you remain there and fighting for a very long time, and some even get to the state of getting almost mental. So I think it will be taken care of. The CDS and the service chiefs have really taken note of that even before the CNC made that pronouncement, and they were going to address that, and I'm sure that within the next 1 or 2 months you will see a drastic change in the field. Thank you.
All right, thank you indeed. Kabir Adamu, are you going to talk on this issue, the issue of rotating the men in the war theater?
Yeah, I mean, Kabir, thanks. I mean, you may wish to speak on this, but if the president says do not allow insurgents any more breathing space, and we are, of course, getting to learn about some of the internal conflicts amongst the terrorists themselves. Perhaps now, officially, Shekau is dead, al-Banawi. We don't know what's happening to him. We don't know who else is. They are probably in a state of flux.
And it's also said that that ISWAP has also taken over
something.
Sabisa Forest, as the case may be. So we don't understand what the situation
is. Are we in a vantage position? How do we press? How do we mobilize citizens to help our troops to, if you like, deal the last fatal blow of these guys?
Thank you for the multitude of questions. In simple terms, and I'm very happy Malam Garba Shehu is here, I think we need to review the National Counterterrorism Strategy that was introduced in 2014. That strategy is a well-articulated document. It's in the purview of the Office of the National Security Advisor, and it looks at several aspects of the insurgency. At the battle of especially the asymmetric warfare that we're waging is the ability to control the hearts and minds of the local population in Borno. And in that document, the techniques for winning the hearts and minds of the local population is there. My honest opinion, 6 years down the road, is that we can do more in terms of our ability to control the hearts and minds of the people in Borno State. Without going into the details, there are 2 or 3 major areas that I would say if the military or the security agencies are going to achieve the directive by Mr. President, which by the way is a beautiful directive for them to dominate the territory and to reduce the ability of these groups to prosper, as it were. And then more importantly, to take advantage of the infighting that is going on between them. Number 1, their source of funding. We need to block that. Number 2, their ability to recruit. If you want to end this warfare, reduce the ability to recruit. And then thirdly, the ability they have to crisscross between our national borders. And at the center of that is the multinational joint task force, the kind of cooperation Nigeria has with neighboring countries. And President Buhari must be commended for his effort in strengthening that cooperation between Nigeria, Chad, Nigeria, Niger, Nigeria, Cameroon. However, there is room for improvement. Based on ironic consultancy, we monitor these developments. These groups are still able to crisscross. I'll just give you an example. The commander that raided Sambisa Forest from the Islamic State in West Africa province received a revampment in his camp of about 300 troops coming from Libya. These are Nigerians who went there, trained, and then came back to join him. We're not talking of 1, 2, we're talking of about 300. So these are all areas that need to be looked into. And at the center of this is intelligence. How do we strengthen our intelligence gathering capabilities, both international and local, and then have a synergy of this intelligence so that a picture emerges that allows the military in particular to take charge and take control. There are several components of this intelligence that we're discussing. Time will not allow us to go into it, but I believe it is these 3 areas that I mentioned are strengthened as part of our national counterterrorism strategy. Then I'm hoping that this directive by Mr. President will be achieved very soon.
All right.
Kieran, I know you want to sign off the guests now.
Yeah.
He just talked about Libya, some 300
I'm
elements.
surprised.
I just keep wondering how Libya has turned into a war factory, producing boots at all times. The other curiosity, of course, has to do with the female bodyguards that Muammar Gaddafi used to have. Where are they now?
But we have so many military camps in Libya.
Let me quickly mention this. Over the weekend, I think it was on Friday, the Americans, at the end of an exercise they did for the region, Sahel, emphasized this point. The Sahel is fastly emerging as the new epicenter of terrorism in the world. After Syria and Iraq were dismantled, now it's the Sahel. And as the superpower in the region, the regional superpower, Nigeria, we need to take that into consideration. And
if I would come in, on Saturday at the ECOWAS meeting in Ghana, Accra, Ghana, I think one of the messages our president took to the meeting is the request that UN be cautioned because they have asked for the expulsion of foreign fighters in Libya. And the president said, you can't do this without talking to those of us who are in the theater, who are in the territory. we need to be advised. Otherwise, we are going to compound our problems. So that problem is anticipated, and I'm sure that something will follow.
Well, you see, Libya has been the center of training of terrorists, in Africa, and because of since the fall of Gaddafi, we have so many military camps in Libya. People who are training mercenaries from Mali and what have you,
and
Chad,
because
exactly. So after the
Libya,
training, of course, those who are paying for it will get like ISWAP. You rightly pointed out. So, gentlemen, we have come to the end of this segment of our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. At this point, I'd like to appreciate Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media, for being here for the program. Thank you indeed. Kabiru Adamu, Security Risk Expert. Dr. Adamu, thank you indeed for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's also appreciate Brigadier General John Temlong, First Commander of the Military Multinational Joint Task Force and former President, Alumni Association of National Defense College, and also a security expert. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. And from Maiduguri, we have had Professor Issa Mate Hussein, Chief of Staff to Bruno State Governor. So thank you indeed for coming. Maybe one of these days, Kingsley and I will visit Bruno State to see things for ourselves. All right. Well, we are going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll go to the second segment of our conversation this morning. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Do stay with us. We thank you for staying with us on the program. And now we have a second conversation which borders on the first Progressives Youth Conference of the All Progressives Party towards identifying and harnessing the potential of youths who will work to deliver the mandate of the governing APC.
And to shed light on the conference, we have with us in the studio two members of the planning committee of the Progressives Youth Conference. First, let's welcome Mr. Segun Tomori and Ms. Miriam Shetima. Miriam, and Segun Tomori, delighted to have you with us on the program this morning. Tell us, what is the Progressive Youth Conference all about?
The Progressive Youth Conference is about ensuring that youths come together from all parts of the nation to have a sort of a rallying point of encouraging ways to have them pushed ahead, like towards more youth inclusion, to have a louder voice, to be heard, to be recognized, because they have got lots of challenges, and there are lots of incredibly intelligent and productive youths, but to have that platform of being properly recognized might be a little bit dicey. So it's amazing that APC had to be the first to come up with this. It's quite a milestone for us and incredibly important.
When you say Progressives Youth Congress,
right,
the impression is that it's a partisan gathering that you're going to have. Is that the case? And if so, where and when is it taking place?
Okay, thank you for having us. The Progressive Youth Conference is for every youth that identifies as a progressive. Nigeria has a population of young people less than 50 years old, make up about 60% of our population, bristling with energies, productive. They make up the productive sector of the economy. So we feel that we need to have a conversation, around young people and how they can participate in governance, you understand, to channel their energies towards improving governance and adding value, basically. So that's why we came up with the idea of the Progressive Youth Conference came about, and it's the first and the maiden edition. It is taking place at the International Conference Center, starting by 10 a.m.
Yeah. You're talking about the youth coming together, to have a conversation on how to contribute to governance. In what sense are you going to do this? Because, of course, for you to contribute to governance, you have to be either elected or appointed in a position of authority, for you to have a say. How is this going to work? Are you going to enroll these youths in the APC as a political party? Of course, sponsor them to run for offices, or rather position them to also get appointed to positions of authority. How is that going to work?
Okay, thank you for that question. We'll be having our leaders. First, the conference is going to be declared open by President Muhammadu Buhari. We'll be having Vice President, we'll be having Chairman of the Caretaker Committee, Governor Mai Malabuni, we'll be having, speakers, we'll be having some governors, Governor of Ekiti State, Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, and some other governors and some other leaders. So we are creating a platform in which we'll talk together, not they talking to us, we're talking with them. We synthesize ideas, we brainstorm, so to speak. They hear from the young people in the party, young progressives across the nation, hear from them on how to make the party better, on how to deepen the progressive ideology, and on how to have more youth inclusion in the party. You made a great observation that for you to participate actively, you have to be elected or appointed. We're going to be making a case for that in that regard. For instance, we are thinking along the line that youth from 18 to 45, a particular elected position should be allocated to them. For instance, State House of Assembly, local government chairman, all the councillors across the 774 local governments. Those are part of the case we'll be making, that we should allocate a certain electoral positions to youth so that gradually we can build new leaders. We're saying future leaders. That's why we say the future is a decision, and the theme of the conference is the future is a decision. So we are making that decision today, and we're starting the journey to that future through this conference.
How long is this conference going to last?
It's going to last for a couple of days.
What do you mean by a couple of days? 2 days?
Yes, actually today is going to be like the main interactive session where everyone would be there, and we would get to know ourselves, and we would get to discuss a lot of issues that revolve around the youths. And then the second day is going to be more like a social kind of thing where it will be less formal. It's going to be a more relaxed setting, definitely. Details are not available yet, but as time goes by, for security reasons and COVID-19.
What are the requirements for participation? Are you supposed to be registered members of APC to participate? Because if you are inviting the youths across the nation, you could have several thousands of youths gathering together.
Thank you so much for letting me explain that. To be honest, and the most interesting thing about this is that it's all inclusive. It does not differentiate. It doesn't say because you're APC or because you're PDP, you cannot come. Like, we all come together. It's a unifying ground of some sort. So you don't have to belong to a certain party to be there. It's for the progressives.
But you have identified progressive because the APC is the All Progressives Congress. Now, how would you expect a PDP sympathizer to be there?
And I have lots of friends myself that are right now waiting for me there and their cards are with me and everything, and they're from different parts of the country, like some of them, southeast, and everybody is going to be there. That's the interesting thing.
So when the conservative youth decide to also hold their conference, what will happen?
Let me add to what she said. To participate in the conference for over, I think, 3 weeks or about 4 weeks, we opened the portal for Nigerians, young Nigerians, to register. www.pyc21.ng. To register. Yeah. So we had, I think, hundreds of thousands of applications.
It was random.
Random. You get so hundreds of thousands of applications. But because of COVID-19 protocol and the time frame and the restrictions at the venue, some were selected from online, while others will participate via Zoom. While those that can't participate via Zoom will join the live stream. I think your television station will be streaming live too, NTA and some other stations.
Why I ask this question is that all your invitees are all APC leaders. Right. Because Mariam has made us also understand that it's beyond political party.
Yes.
But you are not going to have a PDP governor or governor for Abuja governor.
No, we're not having. It is. That's why we say progressive youth conference. But somebody that is not a politician, for instance, that is not that doesn't have a political affiliation, is a young Nigerian that wants to participate, that is looking for a better Nigeria, that want to make his impact in good governance, would have registered.
But this is not strictly a youth wing of the APC.
It is the youth wing. It is the youth wing, strictly planned by the youth wing.
Okay, fine, all right.
Under the office of the National Youth Leader.
Okay, fine, that's great. I'm just wondering, because, I mean, if you want to then, by osmosis, bring in members of the youth wing of other political parties, you're likely to going to have issues. To say, look, why would you expect them to come and contribute ideas to you so that you continue to thrive and then they remain in the periphery? I know we're having a conversation. Well, tell us, what are the key ideas that you'll be pursuing at this conference?
Key ideas, first is youth inclusion. Second is innovative ideas on how to deepen the progressive ideology. Third is...
what is a progressive ideology?
Progressive ideology has to do with the manifesto of the APC, centered around the manifesto of the APC, centered around good governance, centered around providing an egalitarian society for all Nigerians. And I think that is the cardinal objective and manifesto of the APC. So we're going to be discussing on how to entrench it, on how to bring in new leaders, new crop of leaders, develop new crop of leaders. So basically, that's what we'll be talking about. And there will be a lot of sharing of ideas. That's why we are having our leaders, starting from the president.
Mentorship, essentially.
Yeah.
And you understand that many youths are unemployed today. Right, and I'm glad that you're inviting the key leaders, in the ruling party, the APC. Are you going to bring up the idea of youth employment, developing youths, employing them, apart from politics now?
Yes.
Something beyond politics, in terms of having a skills development and what have you?
Absolutely. This is why it's a meeting ground for all these things to be properly discussed. And like you said, there would be lots of innovative ideas and innovations to be discussed. So that would definitely showcase the potentialities of certain youths that ordinarily would not have had the chance to be properly seen and discovered.
Yeah. Then let me add to what she said. Then it's another avenue for people that for the youth that have not been given a voice to speak. In a convivial environment with the leaders of the party. It's not going to be about only youths that are elected, only youths that have a position in government. You get what I'm saying? It's going to be an avenue to interact in a convivial environment with our leaders, to hear the voice of, the unrepresented youth within the party and the progressive youth.
Thanks, Shegun and Miriam. There are some issues that often arise when we are discussing politics, politicking, electioneering, and governance. Right now, everybody's concerned about insecurity in the country.
Yes.
And I don't know whether that forms part of the idea that you will seek to pursue at the youth conference. People are also concerned about electoral violence, and that most of the foot soldiers that are used in electoral violence are young people. Are these issues that you want to say, look, how do we de-escalate violence in our elections?
I feel that...
I will let Miriam take a first shot and then come to you.
Definitely. This would sort of encourage youths. I'm very positive that at the end of this important Congress, lots of youths would have realized their values and realized their potentialities and realized that the limitations really are sometimes even imaginary. So I believe definitely that would go a long way in ensuring that people become less violent and preach peace, and these kinds of things. And also, there's also another point.
Quickly, very pressed for time.
Yeah, we'll be having a series of discussion, series of panelists and discussions and speakers. We're even expecting the youngest senator in the U.S. to join us via Zoom, Senator John Ossoff. Georgian senator, the youngest, he'll be joining via Zoom. We are expecting the Kenyan parliamentarian that was presidential candidate to join via Zoom. Julius Malema from South Africa, I think he should be joining physically or via Zoom and all that. And we're also having Nigerian speakers. So we have sub-teams. The team is the future is a decision, but we have sub-teams for each speaker to speak on. So those will cover the areas you mentioned, security, economy, vis-a-vis youth participation and how youth can, help to drive solutions for those problems and challenges.
All right,
so
fantastic.
Let me also chip in because this is the interesting thing about this Congress, to really show you that it's not really about any party. It's just about the progress of the nation at the end of the day. It's sort of global, you know, the participants.
We run out of time.
Okay.
Mariam Shetima, Shegu Tumori.
Yes, sir.
We're glad you're here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you indeed for being part of the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
having us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
All right.